Okay, thanks everybody for joining. It's an honor to be with you today. We have a lot to cover, but I did enjoy the introductions. I got like 3 sticky notes of names and businesses and ideas, and so I will be working really hard to figure out how we get you to, as the participant said, level up. So whatever your next level, I'm gonna try to do that. So I will say, I'm gonna admit this up front. We may run short on time, but if that is the case, I will continue the material in the next session if that is okay with everybody. But I don't want to shortchange anybody who has questions or as we have discussions as we go over the material. Is everybody okay with that? You can just kind of nod if that's all right. All right. Okay. And the other thing I like to tell you is that this program, Congress Heights, is going to provide one-on-one coaching session with me. It's free of charge. There is a link that you'll be provided. So you'll see my schedule. You can make an appointment. So don't think this is all that we're going to do for you. We can have individual meetings and discuss your particular business and any particular challenges you might have. So the presentation is coming from quite a broad point of view because everybody has a different business, and your business type dictates a lot about how you would proceed. So the one-on-one session will allow us to dig deep and to go into those particular areas. So at this moment, anybody has any starting questions before I start the presentation? And oh, by the way, Monica, can I get permission to share my screen?
All yours.
Okay. And just so everybody knows, I'm not wearing some random t-shirt. I did get permission to wear my company name t-shirts. I didn't want you guys to think I was just like unprofessional and just kind of like showing up. Just letting you know, because I know how you think. You probably like, well, she got a V-neck t-shirt on. She should. It's a business meeting. Okay. I just let you know. It's just part of the branding, which we will discuss next session. But okay. Here we go. All right. And can everybody see my screen? Okay. Unfortunately, I cannot see you very well, so I will count on Monica to point out if anybody has questions or post something in the chat box. Okay. So welcome again to the boot camp. This is just session 1 of 4 sessions. I'm VP. I am, in a nutshell, a physician, educator, consultant, and entrepreneur. My entire career has been in the DC metropolitan area, most of that in DC specific. So 20 plus years in small business development as well as economic development. I provided direct assistance in more than 400 entities, whether it be small business, nonprofit, or government agencies. And as a result, between grant writing, grant review, program management, and revenue management, small business loans. In my career, I've kind of overseen about $30 million. I provided my email address here. You're welcome to email any questions you may have or any resource needs, and I will do the best I can to get that to you. As well as I provided the link to schedule the one-on-one sessions, but I think it's already in your chat box. And as we go through this presentation, please feel free, shameless plug, to put in your website, social media accounts in the chat box to share with everybody so that we can all support your business. I'm a big supporter of small businesses in DC. I actually do visit your website and look at your stuff, okay? So just let you know. Okay, so the 4 sessions that we kind of mapped out for you start with tonight. We're going to talk about managing a startup. Startup is a very particular stage of building a business. And on Thursday, we're going to talk about strategy and branding. And that's where the role of marketing comes into play, and then how do you develop your strategy. So we're going to go over how you do that. Session 3, we're going to talk about managing for growth. So today is about setting it up. On session 3, next week, Tuesday, is about managing for growth. And it's going to dive deep into some of the operations. So some of the things we mentioned tonight will go into detail in some of these later sessions. And then session 4, we're going to close out at talking about the money, the capital needed, and then what is the impact of COVID-19 and how does that really play into your business plan. So first, let me just start off with a little bit of inspiration for you to take away from. There's a lot of research being done on women in business, and some of you mentioned wanting or having a business that's focused on women, which is exactly the reason why we have to support women in business, because diversity drives innovation, and women present or provide industries with different perspectives, skills, and experiences. And as a result, we solve problems in a new and innovative ways. And so women are more likely to see a need in the marketplace and start a company to fill it. And so a lot of you have demonstrated that just by kind of presenting the business you're in, as well as some of the business ideas that you have. And this is information coming from the American Express State of Women-Owned Business Report. So it's vitally important that we support women business owners. But here are some quick stats I just want you to keep in mind and use this as a motivating force. 70% to 80% of all consumer purchases are driven by women, either by our just direct spending power or our influence. So the majority of goods and services are bought. As a consumer, women have an input on whether that purchase is made. But the flip side of that is where the number we really want to change is that only about 39% of privately held firms are owned by women. So that's the percentage we want to change, because that means as a woman, you're more likely to buy a product from a company that is not owned by a woman, simply because we don't have enough women-owned businesses. So let this quick stat be a motivating force to say, you know what, I'm going to be part of the movement to increase from 39% to a different percentage. Maybe it goes to 50, 80, 70%. But that's why it's so critically important that we help you pursue your dream. And so just to close with just this known fact, by supporting women-owned businesses, we actually are driving the community's economic prosperity. And some of you spoke about filling a need in DC. And so just by starting a business, you're adding to the fabric to make the city a much stronger city economically. So it's very important that we assist you in getting you on the pathway of growing your business. And just a last bit of tidbit information here is that the Washington Business Journal in 2019 produced a list of the largest women-owned businesses in DC, ranked by revenue. And I hope you can see at least most of this clearly. I want you to take just a couple of minutes. Just take a few. Let's look. I'm looking at the time. Let's take a minute and review that. I only put the top 8, and let's get some feedback on what you think about this list, because I was quite shocked, but I want to see your reaction. Okay, so let's give everybody
That's terrible.
What's your reaction?
I said that's terrible.
What's terrible?
Like when the last year a large woman business was founded. These numbers on the side, the year founded.
Oh, the year founded. Yeah. So these are the top 8. So it was a list of about 20. So you're focusing on the year that they were founded.
Yeah.
And you're saying that out of the top, the largest one, the most recent founding was 2005. Okay, that's an interesting observation.
Other than Sheila Johnson, we're the Black people.
Okay, that's another one. That's another one. Yeah, y'all are good.
I see a lot of construction companies.
Okay, construction. All right. That's a good observation too.
I'm only familiar with one of these names, and quite frankly, I would not recommend them based on my experience. So it shocks me to see them in this list.
Right. So you have some personal experience with them, and your experience wasn't great, but yet they're able to generate this kind of revenue. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Yep.
Only one is in DC.
Good one. That's another good one. Yep. Anybody else has a thought? So I'll just tell you what blew me away when I looked at this, because a lot of times when I'm putting a presentation together, it's something I reviewed in the past. I just kind of put it on the PowerPoint, and then can everybody focus on number 1 and the revenue? What does that revenue tell you?
Is that how much money they made?
Yes, that year.
It's a lot of, that's a
They-
considerable amount.
Thank you. That's in the billions, yeah. But look at
It's
the
also saying,
industry.
it's also saying that industry, she monopolizes that industry,
But look at the industry that it's in.
travel.
I thought travel agents and whatnots were dead. So I'm putting this here to number one, for you to print this out and put on your vision board, but also to let you know that you can have success in any industry. It's wide open for you. And you have a lot of room to grow by taking advantage of what the city has to offer. And so, you know, don't be discouraged. Maybe the last one was 2005 as the most recent founding, but maybe you're the next one to get on this list. These are women-owned businesses and they're doing well. So despite what the hardships you might be going through, just let you know, these women went through the same hardships and you can overcome them, okay? And if you have any more thoughts, feel free to add them to the chat. So let's talk about some of the challenges so you are aware when you're working through your business. So I thought I would start off the discussion by saying, adding this information, the 4 reasons people start a business. There's not a lot of research on people, why people start a business. There's a lot of research to tell you why you should, but I thought this was interesting because I want to get your perspective on this, because this is critically your first challenge. Your first challenge in business is knowing and understanding the reason why you started. And the reason why that's your first challenge is that point of view is going to influence your decision making. And if you're not honest and upfront and knowing that, then you'll be surprised how you might not be performing as well as you should. So number one, we have the passionate creators. So they're the ones who want to do it out of love. They have a passion for it. And they think the passion is the critical part of being success. Running their business gives them a sense of pride and accomplishment. All great stuff. And mind you, your reasons for starting, no one is greater than the other, okay? Then you have your freedom seekers. So they started because they value the ability to control their work experiences. And entrepreneurship does give you that benefit. You do have a little bit more control over what you have to do. Then you have the legacy builders. So those who want to start because they wanted to bring something new and fresh to the marketplace. Or you can also think about it, they wanted to do something for the community. They wanted to build something for their family, so they're building intergenerational wealth. So they're thinking about what is the lasting impact they're going to make. And then number 4 is that the struggling survivor. So for whatever reason, they had to start a business just to make ends meet, because that was just the predicament they're in. So here's the question to all of you. Let's get a couple of answers. Which one is your reason for starting the business?
Mine is a little of everything.
And
Hey, I was just about to say the same thing.
But and thank you so much. It's almost like we planned this. Here's the thing. You have to have focus. All of us will probably say we dibble and dabble in each of these. But what is your true heart of heart reasons? Because I'm telling you, you're going to make decisions from that perspective. Anybody else? What's your reason for starting?
One.
Passionate. Okay. So we got a lot of creators.
No.
I'm
Hey,
creating
well,
generational
well.
wealth between 1 and 2.
So I heard a little bit about legacy because you want to build wealth. Somebody else?
Yeah,
I'm
legacy
still
for
torn
sure.
between 1 and 2.
And so somebody's torn between 1 and 2. Okay. All right.
Unmute yourself again, Mom, so I can say we broke.
Yeah, I could touch bases with each and every last one and definitely break it down from all of them.
I hear you. So your homework number 1. Your homework number 1, whether you started the business or thinking about starting, think really deep and hard as to your why. Okay? Think deep and hard as your why. I will be very transparent. I am a number 3. Yes, I am a creator, and Lord knows whoever hired me had to deal with me and my ideas. So yeah, I could say yeah, I'm a creator. Yeah, I love freedom. I like to do it when I want to do it, how I want to do it. Like, just give me the task. Don't tell me too much on how to go about doing it. So yeah, I like my freedom. And yeah, of course, financially, I would always like to earn more. But at the end of the day, what wakes me up and gets me energized is saying, will I leave a lasting legacy? So the running kind of movie in my head is like, what will they say at my funeral? That's my thought. What would be the accolades, or will they be struggling to find somebody to talk about me? Or will I have no funeral at all? What will be on the tombstone? So homework number 1, and I'm gonna check in with all of you. I'm gonna email all of you in about a week. Think long and hard about what is your why. And if you have another thing you want to add to the list, please feel free to let us know. Okay? So that's challenge number 1.
Cookie, do you have a question? Your hand is raised.
No, I didn't have a question. I just was concurring.
Yep. There you go. Shaking it, nodding your head. Okay.
It was because I could have related to all of the subjects, and as I think we all could, the breakdown of how you just dissected it definitely changed my answer. So now I'm not as torn anymore on why.
Yeah. Because one of the biggest challenges in business is you have to make decisions.
Yes.
And sometimes you like all the ideas, you like all the opportunities, you like all the people, but you have got to focus. And why allows you to focus. All right.
Yeah.
Some of y'all, some of y'all got like 2-3 businesses and a nonprofit going on as I look at my list here. That's a lot. Okay. So a couple other challenges let's run through. Number 1, every entrepreneurship article, magazine, they'll talk about how funding and capital is a challenge. So that's universal, but it's especially hard for women because we have societal expectations in a male-dominated society that more likely than not, men are going to proceed with starting a business, even though we might have the idea. So the financial industry is more used to and is more likened to seek out men for funding. Okay. Plus, because there are more successful male entrepreneurs and business owners, then they tend to be the ones lending the money. So this is why, another reason why we got to get more women in the seat of power to make these decisions. But one way to deal with that is having business planning. Having a solid business plan means you will know your business, know your customers, know your industry, know your numbers. The way to dispute the gender inequalities is having good information and being able to present your idea clearly. And so that's what business planning does for you. The other challenge I want to mention is competition and market saturation, which is an interesting one because a lot of women tend to go into fields that are seen more open to them. It becomes women dominated, so then it's a lot of competition for a very small market. And so you got to be careful that if you're entering a market that's very saturated, you got to have a strategy to differentiate yourself. And we'll talk a lot about strategy on Thursday on how to develop that, so don't worry. The big issue I deal with when I taught, I used to be a dean and a provost. I taught students in undergrad and at the graduate level, both in health and in business psychology, organization development. The biggest issue I've seen with women is confidence. You have got to present confidently, even if you might have some underlying anxiety about what you're doing. You got to know your worth, because that's going to be critically important when you're trying to name your price, when you're trying to stick to your guns on the agreements, when you're trying to move ahead in the business industry. You have got to be confident. People like to work with confident people, not overly confident, but just confident people who know their stuff, but humble, have a level of humbleness that's approachable. Next is know your the knowledge. Here's where things get tricky. Entrepreneurship and running a business is a daily learning process. And so you have to be able to seek out relevant and practical information on a regular basis. The danger with that is in the internet information digital age, we have information overload. Everybody has written an article or has a business planning tip or has some framework to do things easier or faster. So that is the problem. You have to be very careful about the information you do choose to take in to use for your business. There is no easy way to start, run, grow, and build a successful business. And sometimes you might lean towards the articles or the information that's the easiest way. You have to be careful with that because that's not always, in many cases, going to be beneficial in the long run. A couple other challenges here is the support system, professional network. I put those two together because you do need a business and personal support. So it's just so even if it's just events, if it's to get professional advice, the network is critically important in the DC metropolitan area. I cannot begin to tell you, you've got to start building your LinkedIn profile, okay? Because you never know where you need to get information, and usually information is with a person. And you need to get to that person. And if you don't have a network, it's going to be very difficult to maneuver around the city. So you've got to work on building your network. Join the professional organization that's associated with your industry and with your product or with your business type. And if you can't afford to join, at least sign up to a newsletter, watch the free webinars, something like that. And then, get the name of the speaker and ask them to connect on LinkedIn. You got to start, you got to build that. That's part of the confidence to step out there to reach out to people. Also, women tend to have multiple responsibilities. Not to say men don't, but women are more likely to have to juggle family, spouses, and other responsibilities, elder care, child care, etc. And so time management and energy management, I like to say, are going to be critical. Your calendar and a project management app are going to be your best friend. If you have to do something, you need to put it on the calendar with a date and time that it needs to be done. You cannot be working all the time, so you don't have 365 and 24 hours. Your year is much shorter than that by the time you take out holidays, your birthdays, sick leave, any other, breaks or whatever. You have less time than you think you have to get work done. So you have to manage the time wisely. And the thing about time, it's the only resource you can't get back. Let me say that again. It's the only resource you can't get back. Unlike money, unlike people, unlike information, you can buy it, you can get it in other ways, you can grow it. Time, you cannot. So you have to be very diligent of scheduling your time. Being in business requires a certain level of discipline, more than you would like. And if that is your strength, then it's going to be great. You're going to be great. But if it's not your strength, it's something you have to work on, and you can do it. Because I'm a physician, I will say you will need energy because this is a long game. It requires stamina. So the first thing you should do is go see your physician and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. What will that stress level do to my health? And what do I need to do with my health to make sure I can deal with the stress? So you gotta have self-care. I cannot stress that enough. I actually do talk about my business to my physician because I say to them, tell me what I need to do, because how much sleep do I need? How much water do I need so that I have the energy to do the work? And then lastly, and you might see this a lot, and everybody has it, so it's just rarely that somebody doesn't have fear. Business is risky, and it requires a change of habits. And sometimes changing of habits, depending on your personality, can be uncomfortable. So the fear of the unknown and the fear of the changes you might have, the thing about fear is not to dismiss it, it's not to ignore it, but simply manage it, because you don't want to make decisions out of fear. Because fear will say, do fight or flight, either ignore or run away. You just want to acknowledge that you have fear, because that's just your body saying, hey, be careful, you're doing something new. So just, take your time. but you just want to make sure you have the proper techniques, whether it's meditation, whether it's, deep breathing exercises, whatever, taking your kids for a walk, whatever, to allow yourself to relax so you can work through whatever the business challenge. Okay. So anybody have any thoughts on what their biggest challenges have been so far?
Mine's is fear.
Fear? Okay. So Patrice, you have your hand up?
I got it answered.
Okay, great, great.
There was a question in the chat. Should a professional webmaster and LinkedIn monitor be hired?
Okay. There's a time and place to hire experts. But to just get your LinkedIn started, depending on what stage you are in your business and your career, I would say no at this point in time. First, you just need to examine your LinkedIn. Like, do you have connections? Do you have your basic, company history, experience outlined just in a basic way? So that when you reach out to somebody, they won't be embarrassed, or you won't be embarrassed when they read what you got there. Over time, you want to plan, when do you need to move to the next level to hire someone to rewrite it? But you just want to get it started. Because the reason why I'm saying that, because if you hire an expert at every given moment that you, for an expert, you will be spending more money than you could possibly earn. Because there's an expert for everything. And so sometimes you just need to start and then evaluate to see what you need to do moving forward. So, because the LinkedIn profile may have variations depending on your industry that you're in. And so you want to get into all of that before you start making those kind of radical changes. Does that make sense? Did that answer their question?
Hi, Miss Walker.
Hi.
I asked the question. This is Elizabeth Hall. Yeah, I asked the question. I asked that question.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Your response makes sense that you have to be, really careful with your spending and your finances. But however, when it comes to like time management, calendar, managing a calendar, the project management, and that really matters a lot. It's time management matters a lot in the human and social services field, because the status of people's lives is always
Right.
all over the place, and there's no
Right.
for me to like quantify that or tone that down, because that really is the state of being in social and human services. So,
Right.
So to have any social media account and not have it monitored and or active and or up to date is the purpose of having a social media account anyway.
Right.
I can see that as causing like the stress level already, like taking the stress level to like triple.
Right.
Right. Because you have to manage that social media.
Right. And so this is why you have to be very strategic and tactical as to which social media you will start using for your business or for your professional career, right? I just know LinkedIn because let me tell you, every time I go to a webinar, every time I, because now, not meeting in person, every time I do a presentation, the number of people who I always get hits to my LinkedIn account. So if you're going to be out there, people are going to look up your name. So you might as well have a little something there to verify who you are and what you're doing. It is the way that we do business today. Now, I started doing business technical assistance like 20 years ago. Most companies didn't even have a website back then. It's a new day. Digital and technology almost need to have their own strategy for a business. It is the way you have to go. It's unfortunate, but maybe you just minimize by having one social media account. Maybe that is LinkedIn for you and your profession, right? And and then maybe you have a business page. But you got to do it. There's no way of getting around it. And for many of you who, based on the type of businesses you want to advertise, unfortunately, Facebook is one of the biggest beasts out there to reach large amounts of people for relatively, small budgets. So this is the reality. I don't like writing articles, writing blogs, and doing the website. But guess what? If I want to be in business, that's what has to be done. You just got to do it at a pace that you can handle until you hire people to be able to do that. But you got to have the revenue to support that. So I get you, but we're going to help you out. Anybody else has any thoughts?
We had a question in the chat about how do you balance the promoting of your business related skills in your LinkedIn when you have a full-time job and your full-time job related ones?
Okay, so that's a great question. Here's your challenge. If your business is completely unrelated to your current profession, then you're going to have a bigger dilemma than most, right? So you want to make sure your LinkedIn page talks about you and you as a professional, right? You could have a separate page on LinkedIn for your company. And then you could provide information about the products and services and information and whatever's going on in your industry on your business page. But your professional page can be about you and whatever you're currently working on at your job. Does that make sense? Any thoughts from whoever asked the question?
She said, yes, it makes sense.
Okay. These are great questions, and it's tricky because that's why the business plan is so important, to know when is the timing that you have a company page on LinkedIn. When is the timing you have a separate social media account for your business versus having your Instagram personal account or whatever the case is. So these are all great questions. Is that has to be determined by going through the planning process. Okay, and it varies for everybody. Okay, so let's talk about the setup for a second. Let me check the time. Okay, we're running short. So here's just a basic definition I use to keep everybody on the same page of what I'm talking about. So a business, number one, is an operation, meaning it is legally established entity, it's licensed, it's insured, it has an organizational structure and systems that allow it to function, meaning form follows function. And it's that operation that then provides the product, service, and the customer experience. And it's that product and service and the customer experience that solves a customer problem, because that's what your business does. Your business solves a problem for a customer. In exchange, that customer is going to provide you a payment in which your business, you as a business, need to collect in a timely and efficient manner, because that's how you make money. Okay, so that's a business in a nutshell. Anybody got a question on that? Okay, so if that's a definition of business, here's what a business life cycle may look like. So I made some notations on the typical business life cycle that you will see, just so you'll understand. So generally the startup phase is from the initial stages of the business. There's a general rule of thumb that it's about the first 3 to 5 years of the business, right? And most documentation of what a business life cycle is, you have the introductory phase, the growth phase, maturity, and then decline. And hopefully before you get into a decline, you're repositioning or doing something with your strategy to have a life cycle extension. For our purposes, I would like to introduce, to make sure you're aware of, the aspirational stage. So that's the stage where you want to start a business, you're thinking about starting a business, you might do some research, you might attend a Women in Business boot camp, you're not quite sure, it's just a lot of thinking, but you haven't done much. That's all part of the startup phase too, in my opinion, okay? So from how I'm approaching this, I'm going to say the startup phase that we're going to discuss is a range from the aspirational all the way to the introduction phase. So some of you are in business, you've had some sales, but maybe not as high as you would like. You might not have generated the profits you like at this moment, but that's where you are. So this is where we're going to be focused on for today, okay? So what happens in the startup? And it's a thing to remember that the startup is a critical phase in the business because it lays the foundation for whatever else the business has to do to be successful. And so a couple of you are in construction. If you don't have a solid foundation, you're going to run into problems later. It's inevitable. And there's going to be more problems than you need to have. So the startup phase is all about working on your business, not just working in your business. There is a tendency for many of us, many entrepreneurs, you like to do the sexy stuff. So whatever it is that, if you like to bake cakes, you want to bake the cakes. And you want to get them to the customer and you watch the customer smile and give you the money. That's working in your business. The background work to make sure you can make that sale, that you can make the product, is working on the business. And it's the stuff that people tend to avoid. So I kind of broken it down into some phases just so we can have a handle on it. It's hard to sometimes describe because you do have various types of businesses. So number one is the setup. And number two, we're going to talk about the development of the systems you need to support the business growth. This is where a lot of organizations kind of skip through because they want to hurry up and make the sales, not realizing that if they don't take care of their systems, and they won't have long-term growth. And so they'll just have these short-term spurts or have other issues with customer feedback, negative reviews, etc., poor product quality, and the like. The other thing you have to do during the startup phase, you got to start developing what is going to be the strategy of the business. How is the business going to be different from all the other businesses that are potentially doing the same thing? Then you have to also think about what is the initial product or set of products and services that the business is going to offer. And then how do I going to get that to the market? What's going to be the go-to market strategy? Which is simple. It's a little bit different from a marketing plan because it's very product specific and it gives very discrete tactics of what you're going to do to get the product in front of the customer. And then during the startup phase, you're going to have to figure out what's going to be the initial funding that you need to get it off the ground. And then because it also sets the foundation of what is the long-term funding strategy you need to be. And this is why I advocate for business planning, because if you're doing business planning in the startup phase, the introductory phase, the growth phase, whatever phase you may be in, you're constantly having a cycle where you're building and reviewing all of these on a timeline that you can manage. So just to put a little bit of information, some data. It's hard to find data on how helpful a business plan is, but this is the one that had the lowest percentage. The Harvard Business Review, and they said that 16% more likely to achieve viability if you have a business plan. I have seen some reports that say you are 50% more likely to succeed with a business plan. So at the end of the day, you have to be able to tackle these items. And the business plan is the tool that allows you to do it. So don't ignore your business planning process. So let's run through the setup. Any questions really quickly? Yeah, all quiet. I don't know if that's a good thing. Everybody good?
Good.
Looking through the video. Y'all stuck. Are you taking it in? Okay, it's a lot, but I got you. Okay, so the setup. This is the bare bones basic that you need to do to get your business off the ground, officially started, okay? You need to have a purpose, mission, and vision. So that goes back to the reason why you started, okay? So you gotta have why the business exists, and sometimes that's hard to do, so you may not have it right away. And you need to have a mission statement that identifies what does the business do, okay? You can join purpose and mission together. So that's become a trend lately to have a purpose field mission. So you can, put that together if that works for you. But also you need to have a vision. What is the picture of the future you would like to achieve if you're successful with your business? What will that business look like? How will it change the industry? You need to have a vision because that's going to give you the ultimate goal that you're trying to shoot for. Okay. After you got to spend some time on that. So I put a couple of notations here. If you got to spend time on something, if it requires a lot of time and effort, or if it requires some money, so some startup costs that you got to calculate. So purpose, mission, and vision really just you need to spend time and thinking about that. Okay, doesn't cost you any money, but it does cost you some time and effort. You need to determine your industry code because many of the applications, your licensing, your tax registration, they're going to ask you for your industry code. I've provided you the link to the North American Industry Classification. That's the U.S. federal guidelines, federal government's coding system. So every industry is listed. You need to find which your business matches most closely with and write down that industry code because you're going to use that code to do research on your industry and on your market. You need to have an initial location. Many of you are just starting up, so you're going to be home-based, which is fine. But just know for the registration, you're going to need a physical address. And so you can start off as a home-based business. The only thing I'll let you know about that is that when you register your business with DC government or any government, your address becomes public. So just know if you're using your home business to start, it's going to become public information. And so over time, you might want to figure out a way to have another address. And so there's virtual and co-working spaces, there's incubators, or you'll lease a commercial space, depending on the type of business you have. But let's say you're starting at home. That's going to cost you some money, and it's going to cost you some time. Because to find a location and to sign a lease and become an incubator, or you're going to join as a co-working space, it requires time and effort. Next, we have the registration. So this is where DC comes into play, okay? DC says you need to tell us what's the legal ownership structure. So you're going to submit those articles of incorporation or articles of organization to DCRA. Don't worry, they have a form that you fill out, but it will cost you. And it will take time because it's not an automatic approval. It takes about a day or two for them to get back to you to say, yes, we recognize your registered legal ownership structure of the business. So that's when people say I have an LLC, that means they've submitted their articles of limited liability corporation. So we have some documents to help you go through the types of registered legal ownership structures. Most people choose LLC because it's easier than corporation, but it gives more protection than a sole proprietor. Most times I don't recommend a sole proprietor because if that business gets sued, they actually are suing you personally. So it doesn't separate you from the business enough. You're going to have a tax registration. So for the IRS, you got to get an EIN number. And for DC, they want you to fill out a form called FR 500 with DC Tax and Revenue. That's so you're letting them know what type of business you're in and what type of taxes you're supposed to pay based upon the type of business that you are, okay? The other registration you might consider is your trade name. If you're going to be operating different products or different business units under different names, you may want to say, I want to register a trade name. So I'm BP Walker, but I do business as the work. So that kind of thing. So you have that option if you're going to do that. Again, there's a fee associated with that, and it's not automatic. It does take a couple of days for DC to get back to you. Now that you've registered, and then if DC approves it, they then think, okay, you're in business. Regardless if you're going to start selling or not, DC says you're in business. And so they then require you to have their appropriate business license. And so most of you will have to get a basic business license or a professional license. So some of you said about the childcare, you want to be a counselor, and some of those professions require a different license than just a business license. So you will need to look up when you put in your type of business, you need to make sure what it tells you if you need to get an additional license, because you got to go to other DC government agencies to do that. DC has a clean hands certificate. And when you apply for your license, they ask you to submit an affidavit say you owe DC government no less than $100. And so you need to sign off on that to verify you don't owe DC government any money. So you might want to check, make sure you don't have any parking tickets, any boot charges, or anything like that in which you might have owed DC government for a fee or fine, because those systems are more integrated and they will check. Okay. No matter your location, you're going to have an occupancy permit. If you're leasing a space, you'll get the occupancy permit from your landlord and you will submit it to DC government. If you're starting a business in your home, you will submit a home occupancy permit application. Now, DC government did a really good thing and they packaged all of these up into one package on their site, at the DCRA site. So it makes it much easier if you're starting at home and you just need a basic business license. They have done it all together and you can sit there and just go through it and then submit the necessary fee. Again, it's not automatic. So you got to pay the fee and you got to wait for their appropriate approval. Okay. Next, you got to think about what insurance you need. Now, if you're not going to be selling any products for a while, then you might say, okay, I don't need to start buying insurance. But if you are going to interact with the customer or potential customers, you at least want to get some general liability insurance. And if you're going really, really bigger and you have commercial cars or auto or property, you might have the commercial business insurance, business continuity, there's workers' compensation. I do have a handout that lays these out for you. So you got to look at where you are in your startup phase as to when do you need to buy insurance. One thing I add here that most people do not think about is contact. You got to have contact information as you build your foundation for your business. You can start off with a Gmail account and you might use that to get your business license, to do your registration. But over time, you want to have a professional email address. You want to have a separate phone number, even if it's on your cell phone, but you want to have a separate number. You want to separate your business from your personal, and you want to present in a professional manner. So when you're emailing somebody, you're sending it from your company email. They don't know you're in a startup phase. They'll just see that, you're BP Walker at so-and-so on whatever domain that you have bought. So that's critical. Think about when you need to do that, okay? But you can't start off with a Gmail account, but as long as it's professional. Next, you need to set up the financial. At bare minimum, you need to think about what accounting software you're going to use. And most of them are free to start off with, so you might not have to come out of pocket. And then you need to think about getting a business bank account. Once you have your registration and your business license, you can now go to your bank and apply for a business account, because you want to separate the personal money from the business money. When you start commingling, you don't know how much you're actually spending on the business, and you don't know how much the business is actually earning, okay? And most accounting software now that you buy, I use one called Wave. It's completely free. You can link it to your bank account. So all your transaction on your Visit debit card will download right into the accounting system. So you can track all your expenses all at one time. Okay. The thing you need to emphasize is during the startup phase, you got to track the budget of the startup costs. You don't want to go into this without knowing how much is it going to start to just get it off the ground. Okay. And then we have some initial policies you need to set up. I know this might seem like a lot, but this is to try to reduce your risk and minimizing having any problems down the road. So at minimum, you want to have policies that are related to the customer or the product. So I would say have whatever contract sales agreement, you need to have that worked out. What's the payment requirement or billing requirement? What's your policy on refund? So you at least have the basics to start interacting with customers. Because for whatever reason, you want them to be able to find out, okay, if I don't like the service, am I eligible for refund? What's the process? Where do I go to do that? You need to make sure you have just the basic setup at least. I recommend legal review. So you can barter with a lawyer if you know somebody, or a lot of the online sites, they have mechanisms to provide these templates, but sometimes they might not be as stringent as you would like. So just be careful. Also, there is a pro bono law clinic in DC, so there are some resources that we can help you with there. Now, the game changer is when you start to hire employees. That opens up a wide bucket of things you have to have in place. You have to have your HR system in place. That means you have to have job applications, position description, the salary, payroll setup, benefits setup if applicable. You got to have performance review. All of those things need to be written down, and you got to have policies that comply with the law. There are many laws that cover employees, so you got to make sure you're adhering. Your operation is not putting people at danger. The American Disability Act means make sure you got things have to be accessible for everybody. You cannot discriminate. So there's many actions you have to follow up on if you start to hire employees. So that's another level that you really have to think about before you start doing. They also need a workplace, whether it's physical or virtual. And I highly recommend that those documents are under legal review, because those are tricky and you don't want to leave your company at any risk. Okay. So, any thoughts on the setup? Where are you in the setup process? And I know we're running out of time, so we're definitely gonna have to move some of this material to the next session.
I have my EIN number, my business license, and my bank account.
Okay, so you gotta get the insurance policies, and you're working on leveling up the contact stuff. Okay, so you could use this as a nice little list, and then we'll have some more checklists ready of what your next steps need to be. Because you're seeing customers, right? If you help, yeah. So do you have a contract agreement already? So you have that. You have a payment policy. So you got that. You got your refund policy.
Thankfully, I ain't had to get one yet, but yes, I do have one.
Okay, good. So you got some things in place. What about anybody else? Where's everybody else at?
I have to get the insurance, and I hadn't even considered policies outside of just my basic invoicing template. So I do need to do that.
Yeah. And let me just say this. These policies are the exact reason we get mad at our old job. Because there are policies written and we don't follow them at the old job because we had one of them kind of bosses. And so that's what they got you mad, and you're like, I'm going to start my own business because I'm going to help the community. And here you are. You can't fall into the same trap of the conditions you're leaving to pursue the freedom to have to be a passionate creator or to pursue a legacy. So you gotta set the framework, okay? Because if a customer complains and say, I want to sue you, you don't have anything to stand on, okay? Anybody else?
There's a question about what was the name of the tracker that you mentioned?
For the financial software?
Yeah, I get the download.
Okay, I use waveapp.com, I think it's called. It's called Wave. If you Google it, it'll come up. But there's several others, including QuickBooks, FreshBooks, Xero. There are a lot of them. I use Wave. I'm gonna be honest. It was free. I know in exchange they'll get to see some of my data, but I was like, I'm cool with that till I get going. And for right now, it serves me well. So that's the one I use.
And what are your thoughts on 1099 staff?
Okay, the IRS has very strict rules of who's an employee and who's a 1099. As long as you stay within those guidelines as a 1099. The thing about independent contractors, you don't get to tell them when and how and where to do the work. So if you're going to have a problem with that, that's an employee. So you're giving up control if they're going to be a 1099. Because you're saying to the 1099, just get the work done and get it back to me by the agreed upon time and the agreed upon format for agreed upon payment. An employee, you get to tell them, yeah, I need you to do it at this work desk using this software that I'm going to let you use. And I need it, at this time, blah, blah, blah. That you can't do that. You can't have it both ways. But it is a good way to start as long as you are okay with following the IRS guidelines. Because they will come and get you for that, right? Because an employee is far more expensive. You have to pay their FICA. And if you have benefits, then you have to provide that. And their paycheck need to come on the agreed upon time. You have to withhold their taxes and provide that to DC government. All of that has to be timely if you're going to have employees. Okay. Great question, though. Anybody else?
Just to be clear, with the withholding FICA and some of the other benefits, that's with the employees, not with the 1099.
Yes, it's with the employee. Yes. So each one has pros and cons. Okay. All right. Monica, is it okay this be the last slide and then we roll over to Thursday because we're running out of time?
Sure.
Or is everybody good with that? Is this the main thing right here? Okay. After you have at least researched what you need to do to set up, or if you've gone ahead and started that setup, you need to start thinking about the business systems you have to develop. And guess what? You don't have to focus on all of them all the time. That's why people get overwhelmed. You got to prioritize on the systems you need to develop for number one, to be in compliance, and you stay within the law, and two, the systems that are going to support the strategy, value proposition, and the product. So that gives you some room to build over time. You don't have to do everything right away because you won't know. You got to do the research. This is another reason why business planning process is so important, because it's going to force you to prioritize which systems you need to work on. It's going to force you to make decisions on those systems, like what do you need to do to build it? What do you need? What resource you need to add? How much is that resource going to be? When do I need to acquire that resource? And it's going to force you to document the decision as well as the timeline and the cost or budget that you have to get it done. That's what business planning does. And so if you have gone through the setup process, you've already started some of the systems. So I'm just going to walk you through the systems that I've identified. And I purposely used a Venn diagram because I wanted legal and compliance to be in the middle, because legal and compliance impacts everything else. Everything else has a legal implication. Okay, so you have to build systems to say, okay, I need to check to say is that within the law? Is that within my business license? Is that a new business activity? Did I need to get another license or whatever the case might be? Okay, so let's walk through the systems. So number one, production. So production is related to all the activities you have to do to make your product or services. That includes inventory control. That includes supply chain management. That includes working with vendors and vendor selection and vendor management. So all the activities you need to document. How am I going to make the product? And who do I need to make it? And how much does that all cost? That's the production system. Then you have marketing. Marketing is all about how do I communicate and reach out and grab the attention of potential customers to bring them in to the sales cycle. So it's more than just when do I need to have the brochures and the advertising and the social media. It's like when, how, and why, and what's going to be the message. That's your marketing system. The customer engagement, I like to separate it from marketing because I'm talking more about sales. I'm talking about getting the person in the door, looking at your product and service, whether it's virtually by looking at your website, or is it physical by coming into a retail space? What is your customer engagement strategy going to be? What are the tactics you're going to do to make customers feel comfortable, informed? What's your messaging? How you get them to purchase? And then how do you take care of them once they have made the purchase? How many of us have complained about the business that we love the store but hate the cashier? Or, we love the service is great. We love all the products, but the parking lot sucks. So all of these things matter, but in your business planning process, you're gonna write out how do you deal with them. Okay. Next is data. This is huge because data rules the world. Cash is king. Data is the queen. Data tells you what to do with your money it makes you to make the decisions of how you spend the money to grow the business. Okay. So you got to have systems to acquire data, look at data, review it, analyze it, and make decisions. The other system is methods of record keeping. And this is all about, where do you keep your financial records, your human resources records, your customer information, all of that, which it piggybacks on security. I don't know how many of you have experienced getting an alert to say that a place you spent money, there was a hack or a breach of security or some cyber crime. So you got to have data, you got to have record keeping, and then you got to have the systems that are going to protect it. Like you're going to have, antiviral software. Are you going to use encrypted emails? For some of you, might not be an issue. For others, it might be far more important. Financial and accounting, this includes all your banking information, loan information, credit information as well. Communications and technology. So I link those two together because technology has kind of invaded our space, and it's a chief driver of how we communicate, not only within the business, but also with customers, with vendors, and just the community at large. Research and development. Most small businesses do not put this in this business plan, but here's the thing. You have to come up with new products and services, or you have to continuously somehow improve your products and services. So if you don't spend time, dedicate resources on research and development, you can become outdated quickly. And if you're in a competitive marketplace, your customers will find somebody else. Okay? Management and personnel. So this is all about how you're going to manage your people if you get them. If you don't have any employees, how are you going to manage you? Because you still have to be trained and developed. So all of that stuff still comes in. So even as an owner, how are you going to develop your skills to make sure that you are on top of your game to grow the business? And then lastly here, I have insurance and risk management. So it's all about reducing risk. And so insurance is a big part of that. The policies, of course, they're going to play a part in that, but there are other avenues that you, based upon your industry, that you might entertain. And so you can see here, I put some check marks to indicate if you went through the setup process, you already started working on at least four of the systems, okay? Legal, financial, communications, and insurance. So then you just have to build upon that based upon your type of business. Okay. And I'm going to give you a cheat sheet for how you might want to read up on the systems. There's a great document that I've used. It's How to Write a Business Plan by the SBA. It was written 20-something years ago, 1993, if I recall correctly. But I still use this document, and they have a way of framing the business plan using those systems. And you'll see the headers. It said methods of record keeping, security, and they give you questions and comments on what needs to be in that section. Now, I have improved upon that because it won't have research and development and won't have some of the new stuff with now that we're in 2021, but it's a great starting point. I've put it in a folder on Box And so you should be getting the link from Monica right now. This is where I'll put all sorts of resources for you. So you can go there and download that document. So if you're still feeling a little off about what the systems mean, that's what I'm talking about. It'll give you a great layout. So Monica, I'm going to pause right here. If anybody has questions, well, I'll stay on the line, and then we'll have to pick up at the next session, because I don't want to hold people too much longer than we told them, unless they want to stay on.
Keep going, keep going.
What is the consensus? Because I know you have other responsibilities. See, I can't assume. You know what I mean?
I'm enjoying this. Keep going, please.
Okay, all right.
The systems piece is very important.
Okay, so I'll keep going a little bit longer. How about to 8? And if those of you who have to leave, I'll do a little rehash at next session, so you'll be all caught up. Oh, we'll do it on a one-on-one, so you won't miss anything. Okay, and this is also being recorded.
Keep in mind that the recording will be shared tomorrow.
Okay. So any questions before we move on? Because I'm gonna go do a couple more slides. You good? Any thoughts? Any aha moments? Any oh my goodness? Any fear? Does anybody have any fear? Where are we feeling? What are we feeling right now? Is y'all quiet?
I'm excited. I have to get to work, and thank you for laying out compartmentalizing the systems piece, because that helps me to know, to make sure everything is covered, because I was working on processes and procedures, but some of the other pieces I had left out.
Yeah, systems first, then processes and procedures. Yeah. But you're done. You're making good progress. I like that you even started with that. So yeah, you're doing good. But I like excited. What everybody else feeling?
I would say that my fear is trembling down a little bit since this presentation. So I'm definitely going to continue to tune in into the webinars that you have, because now I feel more comfortable with getting out there and getting started. So thank you.
All right, good. I like that. Anybody else?
Yes, I'm feeling like I'm learning something and that this information is valuable. So thank you.
You are so welcome. Well, good. So that's some good responses. So nobody's scared. We actually have fear reduction. We have excitement. Okay. Come on, Southeast. Come on, DC. I like y'all. Yeah, okay. All right. I want to come up and step my game up, because they not playing. Okay. They ready. Okay. So here's the thing. The systems development is going to continue. That's the crazy part about being in business. It's an ever-going process. So even though you lay the foundation in the startup phase, it's something you're going to be continuously working on, because you got to continually change and improve. Sometimes you have to stop doing stuff because it's just outdated. Sometimes you got to get a new vendor, but you got to have a system to check on that. And that's why I use the business planning system process. So this systems development continues throughout the startup phase and even into other phases. And you have to do it while you're conducting other activities. So that's the other catch that throws people off. So you can't just fixate on systems. You got to do that on a timeline and have a plan for that, because you also have to work on developing the strategy, meaning what's going to be your place in the industry that's going to make you different and attract customers to you. Now, we're going to talk about strategy on Thursday, so I won't go into that in a whole lot. The other thing you have to do while you're working on your systems, you got to develop the products and services that you're going to start with. Okay, that means you got to do research, and you got to do testing, and you got to do refining. So you got to find out, what do people want? What do people need? What would they like to buy? Just because you like the idea, you like the product and service, does not mean that the customer will like the product and service. So you got to spend time developing your product and service even down to what's the packaging. Even if you have a service, like what does the email look like to say, yes, we confirmed your appointment. All of that is part of the experience that you're offering along with your product and service. So we'll talk a lot about that in session 2, I think, and session 3. And then you got to think about, okay, what's the go-to market? What's the step-by-step? Here you're going to be more tactical, less strategic, more tactical. What are the steps I need to go through to properly launch my business or my product to the market? Okay, so that means you got to have a date when things go live. If it's a new website, if it's a new social media account, like when do the tweets start? When do you start emailing to past customers about a new product? When do you start collecting new email addresses for the newsletter sign? So that's where the step-by-step comes up. So you go from systems to strategic, which is all about how do I be different, to product, to tactics, okay? Strategic and tactics are not the same thing. Strategic is position and being different. Tactics are the actual actions you need to do, okay? And we're going to cover that when we get to the marketing section. And then lastly, if you're doing all this research and reviewing, you got to think about how much is all of this going to cost, because that's the total startup cost. And then where am I going to get the money for all of the startup costs? And all of this is your best guess. There's no absolute. That's where some people who are like perfectionists, they want to know like down to the penny. A lot of times in business, it's your best guess. How much do I need to actually start? Go from, the setup all the way to I have now launched a new product or launched the business entirely. Okay. So we're going to talk about that more in session 4, because you have to determine, are you going to do self-funding, which you can if it's pieced out and a good pace for you and you have savings. Are you going to take on debt, or are you going to take on equity financing? Or are you going to use friends and family, which is typical for many small businesses? Friends and family is usually the first investors in a company. So we'll talk about that in session 4. But this diagram in a nutshell is what happens after the initial setup phase, okay? Any questions, thoughts? So we're going to end right with an example. So I don't want to leave you hanging. So I'm going to walk you through an example of how this all works. So I made up a company, and I did this in the last boot camp. I think I did City Soul Catering as the example in the last boot camp. So for this example, I have On the Potomac jewelry. Don't ask me why I came up with that. I wanted to do something different. It's part retailing, but it has a digital, retailing is all different now. So that's the name of the company, right? I gave you some background information, so I'm gonna read this out to you. So the fictitious owner is Sheila. She is a passionate creator. What's a passionate creator? Can anybody remember?
Something she likes. Passionate about it.
She has
Right, they're doing it for the love for it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
She has the drive to pursue this business.
Yeah, but the drive is because she wants to be the creator of the item, and she thinks passion is the quality you need to succeed. That's neither here nor there, but that's how they.
So does she? So would it be she has the desire, more so the desire to pursue
it's
this
more
business?
than that.
It's her why. It's her why.
Yeah, it is her why. And passionate, it's a little bit more than desire. It's a little bit more extreme. Okay, it's almost like not an obsession, but it is a driving force for why she wants to be in business. Right? She wants to be because she loves to make jewelry for people, because she likes how the jewelry she makes other people feel. That's her passion.
I would even say like, it's something that she would do for free.
Yes, yes. Very good
Makes
point.
sense.
Very good point. Because if you're a passionate creator, which is why I told you your first homework is about that why and how you make decisions, sometimes they won't charge what they need to charge because they just be so happy you wanted it. They'll give stuff away. Okay, so you made an excellent point. So that's why I put that there as part of her background. So she's a passionate creator. She works full time, and then she does this little side hustle, side business. Not quite sure what it is. Part-time business on the weekend. She's married with 2 children, so have an idea of her responsibility. Another added layer. She's a caregiver for a parent. She's retiring from the federal government in the next 5 years. Isn't that a typical DC story? You can't get more DC than that. She's received many compliments on her homemade jewelry, and she's given them as gifts for family and friends. That's her background. Okay. So what is the setup? So she thought about her vision, and she says she wants to be the Tiffany of handcrafted copper and bronze jewelry. Can you envision that? Just asking the crowd.
Yes.
Thank you. That's exactly what a vision is supposed to do. You may not understand it. You may not even agree with it, but you start to put a picture in your mind. That's what makes a good vision statement. Not to say you should go with this one, but using another company, a company you want to model after, is a method to help you develop a vision. Like for me, I want to be the Mini Cooper of consulting. I know that don't sound like sense, but I happen to own a Mini Cooper. They are fun to drive because I want to make consulting fun. Like you learn something, but you get something else out of it, right? Because that's my vision. So I got to work towards that. So then there's the mission. So she thought about her mission, and her mission is to design and produce distinctive jewelry for everyday wear inspired by the seaside areas of Washington, D.C. That's a little different, right? We don't think of DC as being on the water. We think of the monuments. We think of Washington, the governmental part. But we don't think about DC has many different kinds of communities, many subcultures within those communities. And she wants to take the inspiration from the waterfront, which is very nature-like, and craft jewelry around it. So you get an idea of how she wants to be different. As for the purpose, she wasn't sure. So she didn't have anything there. Okay, so now she goes through the more formal setup steps. So she found her industry code, and so this is for jeweler. She didn't register as an LLC. She didn't register as a trade name because she liked it on the Potomac. She thought it had a little ring to it, and she didn't want nobody else to use it. She completed her FR 500, so that's her tax registration for DC. She did her clean hands, so she doesn't owe DC government more than $100. She did her basic business license. She did a home occupancy permit because she's going to do everything at home for right now. Even though she wants to be like Tiffany that has retail stores, to start, she's going to be at home. And to help her with her taxes, I put a little hint in here for you. She measured the office at her home for taxes. So just so you know, if you claim a home office on your taxes, you can claim it by the square footage you have dedicated to your business. Is everybody doing that who's in business now? Or did you know that?
Didn't know it.
Okay, so be mindful all the expenses you're laying out and how you're using your home. A portion of the home expenses can be claimed as business expenses on your taxes. So work with your tax planner, okay? Because every year I actually calculated the square footage and I've taped it to the door of my office. So every year I do taxes, I go in, I make sure I put in the same number so it calculates all the other expenses I have with my house to attribute it to the business. Okay. She did your general liability insurance, but she added product liability. Just so you know, if you're selling products, you may want to look into getting product liability if your product may cause a danger to somebody else. It's a little tricky, but it's just it's something you want to talk over with your insurance agent. So because she's using metal, you never know. Somebody might swallow it, whatever. She got product liability. She opened up a business bank account and she linked it to her accounting software, which is free to start off with. She got a domain name. So she's on thepotomac.com. She reserved that so she could set up her email, and she got a separate phone system. And in case you didn't know, Zoom offers a video conferencing and phone system in one for one monthly fee. So she's doing that because now everybody meets virtually. And instead of a traditional website, she's going to sign up for the online store platform like Etsy or Shopify. And she's decided she will have no employees. And so just a rough calculation, this is about $900 in startup costs so far. Okay. So she's been keeping track of how much all this costs. So the question to you, my fellow CEOs on this webinar, what systems should she focus on next? This is you practicing what we just learned, and I'm gonna put it in a big picture for you to think about.
Production.
Production, yes. Because she got to think about how many earrings and bangles, or does she just start off with just the rings? Which one does she start off? Does she start off with a set? Yes, production, excellent. Who else?
She could do
Customer engagement.
Customer engagement, yep. Excellent, because she's going to use that online platform. So she's got to have a mechanism to how she's going to interact with people even on and off the platform. Yes.
Does she have legal and compliance information?
Okay, yeah, so if she did her setup, she does have some legal and compliance, but you bring up a great point. Once you start selling, and even online, there are other tax and legal implications when you're selling your services and products online. So you're absolutely right. So she needs to look into that, because she got to look into whether or not she has to pay sales tax in her city, meaning DC, or does she have to pay sales tax in the other cities that the people are buying from? And if she's online, she can get customers from anywhere. So yes, excellent. Excellent point.
Research and development.
And why do you say research and development?
Because she's selling to consumers online. That's her primary platform. So she needs to make sure she
I think you're breaking up. Did we lose you?
She needs to know the research to know the market that she's serving.
Absolutely right. So she needs to research and development, not only about her current product, because she's making out of metal. Everybody don't like metal. That's a particular crowd you're going for. Some people are just gold and silver only. So she needs to have a system where she's finding out information. What are the trends in the jewelry industry? What am I going to try out next? If I'm using brass and copper, do I mix them? And how does that look? So yes, research and development is something she's got to look at. Anybody else? There's at least one or two other things I would put on the list for her to start with. But you guys are boss CEOs. I know you got it too.
Financial and accounting.
So always financial and accounting. Yes. You're always going to develop your financial and accounting. So even though she's just linked her software, she needs to make sure it's set up. She has a chart of accounts, because when the money starts coming through her bank account, she needs to know how it's all going to be categorized. So yes, excellent one.
Management and personnel.
Management and personnel. I wouldn't at this stage, because it's just going to be her, and she has no employees. And so I would put her learning maybe in research development. So I might wait till next year to work on management personnel. But what is one other one? Because remember, she wants to start, she's selling on the weekends. She wants to continue selling on the weekends. At least one more box. You got to check.
Marketing.
There you go. Marketing. Because setting up the online store, that's just setting it up. There are thousands upon thousands of online stores. She has got to have a way to reach out and she got to have an advertising and promotional plan, how she's going to reach out to the potential customer to say, yes, I am here and here's what I'm offering. Here's the benefits you get from it. You're going to look different. It's special. Not everybody has it, whatever the case may be. So she's got to have marketing. So when you're starting your business and you get that setup done, you're always going to have legal and compliance. You're always going to have financial and accounting. You can go between marketing and customer engagement. You can merge those two if you want to. You're always going to have to think about production. Okay. You're going to have some risk management, but you know what? You can merge that with legal and compliance if that's what fits with your business. This is how you start to manage the load that you have to do. For some of you, research and development might start next year because you're like, I got to get the initial stuff off the ground. I'm not looking at any new stuff right now. Others, like the consultants and the service-oriented businesses, communications and technology might be key. If you're counseling people, you might have files on them. You got to have a way to secure that. Where is that going to be held? How do you communicate with your clients? That kind of thing. So how you develop your systems, there's no cookie cutter way. You got to look at your business type and your industry, and then decide. And then you pace that out at a way you can manage. Now, if you're doing this full time, you have a lot more time to dedicate to get a lot of this stuff done and a lot faster pace. If you're still working and you're doing part-time, you need to put in your schedule, when am I going to do the business planning to start writing in about what my systems will be. If it's only 1 hour a week, you do the 1 hour a week. You do what you can, but you don't stop. You always are working on it at a scheduled time, because then that develops a habit. So like I said, download that how to write a business plan document. And that'll give you an idea of the content you need to have under each system. That is going to be very helpful for you. And since we have gone way past our time, I'm going to break here, and then we'll pick up at our next session. So Monica, you have any closing remarks? Or is there any other last questions, comments, feedback, complaints? Please give them all.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, yes. I wanted to see if some of the realtors were still on the line. I just had a few questions for them.
Calling all realtors and e-realtors on the line.
Oh, they all must have got off.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. So I was wondering if I could possibly get your information. I had a few questions just about some real estate things.
Yes, I can put my email in the chat now.
Wonderful.
Okay.
See how we
Thank
doing
you.
business already. That's what's up. Anybody else? Comments, questions, complaints before we close for the day?
Any suggestions for Thursday's session? We'll get started earlier because we won't have to do the introductions, but thank you so much for attending and being very interactive. It made and just asking BP to go past the time, one that spoke a lot to the content that she was delivering. And it also spoke to what you guys wanted to hear and receiving everything that was and felt that it was informative for you. So we thank you. We're excited to have you. Look for a follow-up email and posting of this PowerPoint as well as today's recording. And then we'll have a short survey asking you guys to give your feedback from today's session. So we'll see you guys on Thursday. I'll log in early about 5:45. And if you want to come on earlier, like 5:30, between 5:30 and 5:45, join. and you guys can do a lot of networking during that time before we get started.
Oh, perfect.
Great idea.
Excuse me, Miss Monica, I had a question.
I have an answer.
Do we, can I give you my
I love
email?
it.
Because I wasn't in here in the beginning.
Sure, place it in the chat. Did you register for the event?
No, I was
Okay.
sent this.
I sent it to her because I knew it would benefit her a lot.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Miss
continue
She's
Jordan.
going to register tonight.
between today and tomorrow and even Thursday during the day. And if you can just place your email in the chat, I'll grab it out of there. And also I did identify those people about the LinkedIn assistance, as well as Patrice, who were asking about some project management apps. So I've written all that down and we'll do a follow-up tomorrow with everyone.
And everybody's welcome to email me if you have questions, and feel free to go ahead and schedule your one-on-one if you want to get started.
And that content, that information for the 101 will be available tomorrow as well, but I did drop it in the chat and I can drop it again really quick.
Yeah.
In 2 seconds to drop the 101. And I think we'll be good.
Well, thank you for a great evening. You guys have been extraordinary. I salute you for your enthusiasm. I look forward to your business growing. I will probably be a customer, so I got to treat you right so I can buy my next house. There's a landscaping person here. Somebody got a children's book. The Christmas is coming up. So I'm gonna do my shopping from this list.